Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for hitting that play button for another episode of the Heady Coleman podcast, where I have go-in conversations with fabulous people so that you can do three things. And when you listen in on somebody's conversation, you learn from it because they're sharing their story. You can learn from their story. You can also learn about them. You are inspired by it. And everybody, especially right now, we all need some inspiration. And then the third thing is that I believe that we connect from one another when we share our stories with one another, and therefore it leads to community. And I believe that community wins. And today, ladies and gentlemen, today I've had rap battles with this guy over a number of years. And let me just say, I'm just trying to get him to rap so I can hear him rap and freestyle. I really have no chance at all against the one and only, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Adam Ledbetter. Adam, what's up, man?
What's good, Heady? It's good to be back on friendly terms. You know, we've, like you said, we've gone back and forth so many years. It's nice to just sit here with the sole intent to be civil and not give you these bars right now.
Well, before we jumped on, I was just listening to some of y'all's music, and man, let me just say, like, you know, you listen to somebody's music, you be like, how in the world are they not like just blown up on a whole nother level? In the sense of like world renowned, everybody knows who Adam and Kizzy is. Yep, you all have that kind of talent to me. But what I've also learned is like, there's most musicians who you would hear and you'd be like, there's no way in the world this person should not be there. And those are some of the greatest musicians ever. Like, everybody may not get to that place where they were renowned, but the cool thing that I love is that you still keep putting in the work.
Man, I appreciate that. You know, I was kind of thinking about that this morning. I was remembering when Lil Wayne started his bid to be recognized as the greatest rapper of all time. And I was thinking, I don't remember anybody ever saying that Lil Wayne was the greatest before Lil Wayne said he was the greatest. But he started the narrative, and now he's like legit in the conversation. He's not on my list personally, but you know, I think there's something to people being recognized as great. Really kind of requires a certain kind of narrative be behind them and a certain kind of packaging. And artists who are great at what they do tend to be great at what they do and not all of the other little things that might make them known to a wider audience that isn't in the habit of digging for that kind of greatness. But, you know, a lot of people are, I don't know how much of a thing radio is anymore, but, you know, a lot of people who grew up listening to the radio, that's just what it is, you know. If you're going to fast food for all your nutrition, then you'll never know like great cooking. So I think that the world is kind of opening up though, because a lot of artists are able to create their own platforms without having to rely on major labels or major distribution to find their audience. And they may not ever become household names, but they can find their tribe. So that's kind of the path that I feel like we're on, just trying to find our tribe, the people who dig what we do.
Yeah, that's good. Did you ever think that there would be a day to where music is in such a place now that you don't need a record label or anything like that? Like, you legitimately can do a new song and stream it and put it out in the world every day if you wanted to.
Yeah. And there's some people who are legit doing that, which is mind blowing. Shout out to Jacoby Ryan, another great Oklahoma MC. Last year, he did a project where he dropped a single and a video every week. So he put out 52 joints and videos for him too. And, you know, that crap blew my mind. That was kind of an inspiration behind Bars and Boards. You know, when I decided this year I'm going to drop 3 verses a week and just put it out there. But there's a lot behind that decision, but that was one of the sources of inspiration. To answer your question, growing up, I think that I always kind of really loved the folk music aspect of hip hop and the DIY aesthetic of just like putting together tapes in your bedroom, You know, I think a bunch of us probably played around with our tape decks when we were kids and had like fake radio shows and stuff. And for me, it was about like never losing that element of play, but keeping that, you know, and just kind of upping the quality as you go along. But at the same time, I never really thought that there was a way to be a professional musician without that outlet, because everyone I looked up to was that. You know, I was a huge Busta Rhymes fan, and at the time Busta Rhymes was like on top of the world. So it's like, for me, that was my frame of reference of what it meant to be a rapper. So it's like, you know, on one end, you're living everyday life with your friends, you're freestyling, you're putting together little mixtapes, and you're circulating them among your community, and that feels very real. But at the same time, it's like there's such a huge gap between doing that and being a Busta Rhymes or being a Lauryn Hill or Big Pun or all the rappers that I looked up to at the time. It's like that gap was so huge, but I feel like that gap's not that huge anymore. You know, you can get like 1 million streams on Spotify on your own without any help if you put in the work. And now there's actually a blueprint for it. There's a formula you can follow. And it really just comes down to who's willing to do that side of the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's with everything. It comes down to if you're willing to put in the work or not. And as an artist, to say, hey, I'm going to drop three songs, whatever, a week, like that takes work. One, you got to come up with the content, right? You got to come up with the music. You got to come up with the lyrics. If you just not like I'll just jump on something, just start to put it out there. But for somebody who's really wanting to work that craft, man, that takes work. What would you say to an artist out there, up and coming artist, is something to help develop that? What are some right things that you say, hey, be consistent in this to be able to craft your best content in music? What are some things that you're doing?
I think the number one thing you have to tap into is your why. Why are you doing this? What is your actual goal? For some people, it may be financial gain, and that's not illegitimate at all. That's a thing, you know. For some people, it may be personal. It might be psycho-emotional. Some people may feel they have a message to bring to the world. But regardless, what's going to keep you in it is understanding why you're doing it, because no matter what you're doing or why you're doing it, there's going to come those times where it's beating you up. It's kicking your butt. It's like the thing you promised to do, it now seems overwhelming. And so if you don't know why you're doing it, then you're going to get weeded out. So I'd say that's the number one thing. For me, a big part of it is, okay, so my philosophy is that no matter what your craft is, no matter what your interest is, if you do it with intention, and if you go deep enough into it, you're going to learn life lessons through it. So with music, for example, the deeper I go into studying music, musical theory, the way music works, the way it affects us as human beings, the more I discover how the world is organized, you know. And of course, you know, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus, you know, the Bible, all of that. So for me, it all comes back to look at what God created, and what a gift to be allowed to manipulate the elements he put before us. By introducing vibrations into the air, I can now affect change. I can affect the environment around me positively. I can convince people of things. I can inspire people. I can be inspired in return. And so without playing God, he did give us like a certain realm to play in. And I think through that, we can discover more about his nature in the world that we live in. But I think the same is true for anything. You know, if you're an athlete, I think you're going to discover the same principles. If you're a car mechanic, you're going to discover the same principles, but only if you actually digging in deep enough. So all that to say, for me, another really important part to doing this is finding inspiration, not just in music, not just in the things that I'm doing, but primarily going outside of that and trying to bring it back to what I'm doing. So I spend a lot of time like reading articles about random stuff. I like watching chef videos and watching cooks put together meals. I like watching. I've recently gotten into watching videos on YouTube of mechanical keyboards, computer keyboards. It's like
Oh
this
yeah,
whole
yeah.
thing. I didn't know anything about it until a few months ago, but now I'm like, every morning I'm washing the dishes and making breakfast and turning on these live streams of people putting together keyboards. And there's something that's real truthful about that to me. And something about not really understanding why a thing is, but also catching the vibe of what it is without being able to really put it in terms, why does this feel so good? Why does this feel so right? But indulging in it anyway. To me, that keeps me chasing it. That's inspiring for me. So knowing why you're doing a thing, finding inspiration around you, and just really being disciplined about showing up and doing what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the other part, because if you're not actually training your vessel to be respondent to the call when it comes, then all of the other stuff isn't really going to mean anything. That was a huge missing part for me. I'm not a naturally disciplined person at all. So it's taken a lot of work for me to get to the point where I can day in and day out do the thing I said I was going to do. And even delivering that promise in the beginning was difficult, knowing myself. But, at one point I said, okay, I'm going to drop 3 verses a week. Now I have to actually do it. Now it's real.
How many weeks are you planning to do that?
That's a good question. I haven't stated that because I don't really know. I don't know how long this is going to go on, but I do know that somewhere around my 25th video, I started to feel like this might be actually like my life's work. This body of work might actually be kind of like legacy defining. And I'm someone who hoarded verses for years. Like, we talked a little. I wrote and made songs, but I went through this real bitter period in my younger years where I felt like I was doing things and they weren't being received. What I was trying to say wasn't being heard. And so I got real selfish with it. And it's like, well, I'm just going to keep it to myself. So releasing them now, having grown up, being older, being more mature, and understanding why God may have given me the gift to do this in the first place, makes putting these videos out really cathartic and satisfying in a way. I feel like I'm righting some wrongs from my younger years and answering the call like it's not too late. Like I can still be important. I can still matter. What I have to say still can be said. So, yeah.
Now, are you putting all the videos on YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook.
So on all 3 platforms, same videos.
Same
Where do
video.
people find you? Where do people find you at those 3 platforms? Because sometimes people listen to. So I know that people jump off podcasts. So I want to get that in as soon as possible. It'll also be in the notes, but in the comments. But where do they find you?
On all of them, it's ADAM, ANDKIZZIE. So Adam and Kizzy spelled out. So youtube.com/Adam and Kizzy, Facebook.com/Adam and Kizzy, Instagram @Adam and Kizzy.
Legit. So talking about not knowing exactly how many weeks or whatever, you do know your why. What is your why?
My why, okay, so I kind of touched on it a little bit, but when I look back at my life, I see that God has put me in a unique position to receive training in really specific ways that I think has kind of put me on a path where it's like the work that I'm doing with bars and boards is work that I honestly believe if I wasn't doing it, nobody else would do it. I think that all of it culminates, so I'm not the only rapper who plays keys. That's not what I'm saying at all. I don't know anybody else who's doing that specifically, rapping and accompanying themselves on keyboard. But not just that. I feel like the things that I rap about and the messaging that I'm putting out is really important. And I think that hip hop is really saturated with unimportant messaging. I'll put it that way. Distraction, a lot of excess, a lot of self-indulgence. Like when we think about our favorite rappers, how many of them are actually saying the things that we need to hear in order to be healthy, mind, spirit, and body, and to carry ourselves a certain way? I think a lot of times we listen to the music as a form of escapism, or as a way to indulge our deepest, darkest fantasies about the lifestyle we'd want to live, or doing the debaucherous things that are talked about in the music with impunity, like there's no consequences on the other end. So the thing that I've always loved about hip hop is the potential of what it could be as a medium to communicate. I don't think there's anything else in the world as powerful. People are really, really digesting this stuff. And it's like, man, imagine if somebody who could speak, somebody who knows the art, was actually saying things that the world needs to hear. So that's my why. I honestly believe like there are things that need to be said that just aren't being said. So I try to say those things. So in my Bars and Boards videos, I talk about a lot of social justice stuff, everything that's going on with racism in America, done raps dedicated to Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. I did a video specifically about broken windows policing, which has led to a lot of the police brutality that we're seeing, and just trying to get really to the heart of the issue and sharing the information that I find with my listeners. But, I'm a new dad now, so I'm doing raps about poopy diapers and breast and just whatever's going on in my life, just trying to share it from an honest space, and really hoping that, I guess to quote Sean Johnson, simply a vessel, just trying really to be a vessel, and trying to gather important elements of information and messaging that are hitting me, and then trying to filter it back out in a way that people who may not be listening to that messaging might hear it, because it's now in a format that they can vibe to.
That's good, man. Let me ask you, I got so many questions. I'm trying to make sure that I collect them all to be able to ask them. To write a song on the keyboard, to come up with a song just on the keyboard, or to come up with a rap, which one's harder? Does that make sense?
Yeah. For me, writing the raps is harder in the sense it takes more time for what I do, with the Bars and Boards series. But I guess it depends on what the goal is. There have been pieces that I've written on piano that have taken months to work out, just because I'm trying to get to a thing that isn't readily available because I haven't done it before, or I might be working through a particular physical challenge on the piano or things like that, writing an etude or something like that. So that's always hard because it's supposed to be hard. That's the point. Writing raps in general, sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's easy. When a wave of inspiration hits, it's easy because it feels like you're not really even writing. You're just receiving it and putting down on paper. When we started, I heard you were playing On Behalf of the Shaniquas from our last album. And that's an example of a song that just kind of came. I'm sitting, it's like it's just pouring out, and it's coming from a raw emotional place. I remember being very emotional when I wrote it, and when I perform it to this day, I get emotional a lot of times. But that was just kind of given. But then a lot of these Bars and Boards videos that I'm doing. You know, they may be shorter, but sometimes I really struggle with putting them together just because if the inspiration's not there, now it's just about the discipline of sitting down and working through the process and doing the research and, you know, going through draft 1, draft 2, draft 3. And it's like, I want to be done with this, but it's not there yet, and being honest in that way. So in general, I would say composing on the keyboard for me is probably easier. But I also feel like as a rapper, I'm more ambitious than I am as a piano player. So that might be why. I don't feel like I tend to push myself as hard to create something on the piano that is going to transcend where I'm currently at. But I feel like every time I'm writing a rap, I'm trying to transcend. I'm trying to do something that's never been done before.
Is that because of the belief you have as far as how hip hop can really be the most impactful medium of, you know, of art? You know, I don't know how to put it, but earlier you talked about how you feel like this hip hop is the thing. And is that the reason that you're more ambitious with your lyrics versus on the keys? Because you're a beast on both. Like, I feel like your key playing and your lyrics match one another. You know what I'm saying? Like, when I hear you play the keys, I feel like that's the same way you rap. I can hear either one, and when I see you or hear you playing, I go to the same place, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. For real, that's a big compliment. I think that partially it is because of how I see hip hop as an art form that is in development. And I see that in the continuum of Black music, there are certain calls for the music to be developed in certain ways that are unanswered. But on the piano, I feel like there's nothing new to be done. So that I don't think I could ever do on piano what I could actually do in rap. I don't think that I could ever be like a pianist that's really bringing something new. When I listen to like Herbie Hancock, I'm just like, what am I gonna do that this think of? When I listen to Stevie Wonder, it's like, am I gonna compose anything that is touching this at all? Or even when I'm listening to like old music, I listen to ragtime sometimes, and I'm like, you know, this isn't the convention anymore, but this is like, this music is as raw and packed with information as anything I've ever heard. But when I listen to hip hop, I feel, and this is definitely going to make me sound like a snob, which I accept that. But when I listen to hip hop, a lot of times what I'm really hearing is ideas that haven't been explored yet, things that haven't been thought to do. And I believe as a rapper that I am in a unique position to do those things, to explore those things, and to leave behind a body of work that actually pushes the art form further. So I guess I'm a little more serious when it comes to rapping because I feel that opportunity and maybe a little bit of obligation to that. But on keys, for me, it's like, I just want to play. I want to have fun playing. I want to express myself. You know, I want to use the tools available and do my thing and be unique in that way. But with rap, it's kind of like, I don't know how long I have to live, and there's all this work that can be done, and I don't see anybody else going anywhere near it. So I want to do as much of it as possible and leave kind of a blueprint behind.
Yeah, that's cool. So talking about earlier, you mentioned everyone kind of having their artists. You know, who and you talked about Lil Wayne saying he wants to be the greatest. And this is a conversation that as hip hop fans, you got to have this conversation, right?
Yeah.
Who's your top 10? Who's in that top 10?
Top 10 is a big list.
Let's go 5
rappers I listen to regularly. Definitely Black Thought, definitely MF Doom, to me, those are the perennial mainstays. Like Black Thought is the best possible model for what it means to be a master MC. He's just shown up over and over and over again and just proven his mastery. And he does it without a lot of fanfare, which I really appreciate. But I think out of like all of the rappers who are in the conversation to be the greatest of all time, Black Thought is the one who's actually earned it through just sheer hard work, just showing up and being consistent and being excellent over and over and over again. My personal favorite rapper is MF Doom. I think he's the only rapper that comes to mind who is as prolific as Black Thought and maybe more consistent over time than Black Thought, just in terms of being excellent. Black Thought's body of work, I would say, is probably more listenable and more even in a certain way, but MF Doom's like, he's just, have you checked out MF Doom?
No, I'm about to check him out. Is he new?
No, he's been around for forever. He's from the early hip hop group KMD. Then he had a personal tragedy. His brother died. He went into hiding. And then he came back after his, basically disappeared. And he came back as this mythical personality, MF Doom. He wears a metal mask. Nobody's seen his face in decades, really. And he puts out all this music under different alter egos. So you have MF Doom, but then you have like the Monster Island Czars, which is a whole group that he voices. Victor Vaughn is his personal alter ego, and he's releasing music under that name, and it has a different vibe. But he's a real life comic book character. But his rap ability is it's frightening what this dude puts together. And Mos Def went on this binge a few years back, where he was saying MF Doom is the greatest. MF Doom is, and then I think after that, more people started to really pay attention. I think like the Backpackers and the underground hits knew all along MF Doom was the GOAT. I think Andre 3000 is also deserving of being mentioned in that group of the greatest. Who else? Personally, I love Elzhi. I feel like not enough people mention Elzhi when they talk about greatest MCs, but he's just got a really sharp pen. He follows a formula, but he does it so well that you don't really mind. Big Punisher, to me, is one of the greatest to ever do it. Rest in peace. Eminem is an incredibly dexterous lyricist, Tech Nine is another just incredible MC. The rappers that are usually named in the conversation, I feel like are overrated for the most part. But I will say that I've really started to enjoy Jay-Z's later music. To me, it's always refreshing to hear rappers who have like kind of grown up and now they're talking about actual life stuff. De La Soul put out a couple records, in their later years. They probably still will. And to me, it's some of my favorite work they've ever put out. Like The Grind Date is one of my favorite records. And, they're just talking about real life stuff, grown man stuff. So I'm not one of those people who feels like people over 40 shouldn't be rapping. I think the art needs to grow up, and the artists who are making it need to grow up with it and kind of push for that. I feel like I'm probably leaving somebody out who's incredible.
You just say Rakim.
Yeah, Rakim for sure. Like Rakim is really he was really ahead of his time for sure.
Yeah.
Without him, there couldn't have been like a Big Pun or Eminem or anybody else, any of the greats. So he definitely opened things up for MCs. I think Kendrick Lamar is opening some things up too. Like he's giving some new pathways on a bar for bar level. I don't think Kendrick Lamar is like one of the most interesting artists out right now. But in terms of the vision of what he's creating and the larger arc of what he's doing, I think that that's an important piece of hip hop history that hadn't really been in place to the level that he brought it when he put out To Pimp a Butterfly. It's like, this is a really important document in music, and regardless of how people feel about it now, and a lot of people loved it, it will be remembered as one of the most important things to have happened in hip hop history. So yeah, Kendrick definitely gets flowers for that.
What about Nas?
Yeah, so Nas is a great MC. For me, that's about as far as it goes for me. Like Illmatic, I definitely give it up to Illmatic as a debut album for him to been as young as he was. The album was definitely ahead of its time. It was visionary. But you know, I think Nas is generally kind of overinflated into the conversation a little bit, personally. But you know, I'm really into just like bars. So
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna disregard my opinion because I tend to devalue the whole conversation about like cultural influence and impact that an album had or record sales. I feel like it's pretty irrelevant to the conversation. I think that's its own thing, you know. And if record sales is the metric we go by, then Eminem is definitely the greatest of all time because he sold more records, you know. And if we're talking about cultural impact, then I think Snoop Dogg should probably be somebody who's brought up a lot, because how many people have been that consistently relevant for that long? You know, very few people can make that claim. So I think that we all have like the artists we're emotionally attached to, and then we try to back up our emotional reasons with data. Like we squeeze the data, emotional spaces and all that. We come up with these metrics, and everybody is saying, for me, it's like bars. I don't care who spits them. It's like, are you putting together raps that are elegant, that are concise, that are rhythmically satisfying, that are unique in the way that they communicate, that are thought through? You know, that for me, that's what the art form is about. That's the essence of what it is. I think anytime you have a folk art form that becomes popular music, then you have to judge it by its essential folk elements. And so rap, for me, the essential folk element is the bars. So what I'm looking at every time. So y'all can disregard my opinion now. Record you sold, I don't care how much of the game you've changed. For me, I feel like the game isn't where it's supposed to be. So I'm not really a true hip hop fan in that way either, though. So I tend not to engage in the conversation for that reason, because I feel like I'm a little more of an outsider, because I don't really love hip hop like that. I love what my vision of it could be. So, you know, like what I'm doing in it is really personal. I want to see this part of it developed, but as it currently stands, I just feel like it's this big bowl of potential that hasn't been realized.
That's good. Now I just got one more though. Lauryn Hill.
Oh yeah, Lauryn Hill. She was a huge game changer for me. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is just an incredible record. She was attacking it from every angle. The backstory of that record is really tragic. It's really heartbreaking. You know, all of the relationships that soured, all of the deals that went left, and how it has impacted her legacy as an artist, you know, to have so many bridges burned. So I don't know for her how much that album was worth all that. But for me as a fan, selfishly, I listen to it. It's like, you know, whatever made this album made an incredible album. And it's aged really well. Like you can listen to it. And I think that's because, like I said, the folk elements are there. You know, those things don't go out of style. They're just there. And so that album will always sound good. Those bars will always feel good. Of course, her as a singer, it's freaking Lauryn Hill, like one of the greatest to ever do it.
Yeah, there's not very many concerts that I would say I probably would go to, but if Lauryn Hill came to Oklahoma City, like whenever, I would buy the ticket. I would go. I mean, I just think that she, especially being a female, like I don't know if there's any guys or whoever, like Lauryn Hill is just super talented. And her ability to guitar, sing, lyrics. I mean, talking bars. I mean, like she she could do it.
She is one of the true geniuses of hip hop. For real, for real. She was one of the true geniuses. And you know, I don't believe that being female inhibits you, you know, and I know that's not what you're saying either. But what it does mean is that there were certain barriers that she had to go even further. She had to go even harder to show the world what she had within her, you know, and so I give all the flowers to her for that. Cause I mean, how many male artists have done anything anywhere remotely close to the Miseducation Lauryn Hill, or her work with the Fugees, because we can't forget about that. Like the score.
Oh,
bro,
the Fugees are the Fugees are Wyclef. I mean, like you're talking about some of the best, you know, but they're kind of like the Black Thoughts too. Like even though they had that moment to where they were pretty world renowned, they're still very Black Thoughtish to me. Like there's not a lot of people that you're going to be able to have a conversation with and they would understand the ability of them being lyricists and the impact that they've had on true hip hop. You know, like they were very underground for a long time before they came out, and really just had that one, you know, that one record that went mainstream. But
yeah, and they never did anything whack. And Wyclef he's one of those unique characters where he can do all sorts of stuff and sound like himself. You know, like the work he did with the Fugees, he sounded like himself. And that is totally different than the work he did with Destiny's Child. But you can feel his imprint on all of it. He just has music running through him. So it's like it doesn't air on the circle he shows up. That circle is going to end up looking like Wyclef.
And he can pick up just about any instrument. And so I'm always appreciative, like Prince, like people who I can touch any instrument, but then also I can sing, or I can bring it as well. Those kind of people just, you know, you doing what you're being able to do. Like, I just admire that, you know.
I appreciate it, man. Don't sit me down in front of anything but a keyboard, bro. I'm gonna keep it real. I was never that, as much as I wanted to be. I wanted to do. It wasn't in the cards.
There's not very many people who can sit down at a keyboard and drop bars though. So that's what I'm saying. Like oftentimes it's like one or the other. Very often is there people who can do too well, and then very rarely can you do multiple, you know, and sing or rap or whatever. But when did you realize that like music was your thing? Like because you went to class and I'm assuming that when you went to class it was because of the arts. But when was it for you that you really fell in love with it?
It was somewhere around when I started at Classen. So I started piano lessons in the 5th grade, and in the 6th grade I went to Classen for piano. So it didn't take long for me to, you know, kind of determine that was the path. At the time I was really heavy into soccer, and I was my thought at that time was that I was going to pursue becoming a professional soccer player. But then once I really got into piano, I started missing games to play weddings and stuff like that. And so it kind of became clear within maybe a year or so that this is me. I got this, and being at Classen was a really big part of that, because I met people like Kizzy, Cadence, Lanier Lee, Spence Brown, like a lot of the artists who are still like foundational pillars in the Oklahoma creative music scene. We were kids at that school together, and the trajectory was set real early on. And I remember that the school had a lot of Kurzweil keyboards, synthesizers and stuff. And there was a handful of like beat makers at the school, and we were all working on the same keyboard. So I would go on my lunch break and go to the keyboard and listen to the beats that everybody else was making and try to deconstruct them and figure stuff out. And that's the kind of education that you can't really put in a curriculum. That's just being a part of the culture there, being inspired by your peers. There was a lot of friendly competition, and I was one of the younger ones, so it was perfect for me to come up, sing this, and realizing that the standard was wherever you wanted to set it. Because honestly, when I was in the 8th grade, some of the raps that I heard from people at the school are, as they were on the level of what we would consider, really pinnacle, like the pinnacle of the art of writing raps, so it's like, oh man, you can do this. You can write like real bars. And there was a lot of that going around at class. And so that was actually where I started playing piano and rapping at the same time too. Cause like I mentioned earlier, I was a huge Busta Rhymes head. He couldn't drop anything without me having it memorized within 5 hours of him dropping it, and I was the dude. I'd come home from school and turn on the radio with my cassette in deck, waiting for a Busta Rhymes song to come on. And I'd have just tapes of Busta Rhymes songs that I recorded on the radio or recorded on VHS when his music videos came on, transcribing. And I would take his raps and then write new raps over them, following the rhythmic patterns and stuff. So that was like my education. But I would play his beats on piano. Like I remember, you remember this one? So figuring out like how to play the beats and then rapping the lyrics, it was a means to an end at the time. But that was one of the other reasons behind Bars and Boards. It's kind of like with Adam and Kizzy, I felt like people knew that I rapped because I rapped in the group, but nobody thought of me really as a rapper. I think people more so just thought of the group, and they saw me probably more as like a keyboard player in the group who raps on some songs. And so I kind of wanted to return to my original form and put my voice back out there as an MC to say all the things that, I feel need to be said. And so coming back to the keys and rapping really was like just going back to 6th grade for me and just doing that thing.
Yeah. Talk about what it was like as a senior in high school, being a musician, a diehard musician. Like there's that transition, I feel like, out of high school, and oftentimes we're pushing college, right? But as a musician, is that a different transition for you when it's not an academic thing so much so, but there is this thing like you go to college or go and do, like, what's that next thing? Like when you're a senior in high school and you're a diehard musician, what was that like for you? And what would you say to that senior in high school right now?
Well, man, honestly, I wish I could be a senior in high school right now doing that, just because there's so many more options available than there were for me. At the time where I was coming out of high school, going into college, your options were you could go study jazz in New York, or you could study in a classical program anywhere else. But if you wanted to do like hip hop, then college that's not the place to do that. That's something you do in your own time. If you wanted to be a DJ, if you wanted to be a rapper, those weren't things that you could study in an academic setting. That's changed now. I actually created the hip hop production program at ACM. And I would tell my students that all the time. It's like, man, I wish this was around when I was y'all's age. I would have ate this crap up, because I remember what I was doing at the time. I was in the dingy church studio trying to put it together at 3 a.m., you know, with no information, just trying to figure it out, working it out, which is valuable in its own way. But to have those kind of resources where you can go in and you have all the MIDI controllers, you have all the current software, you know, and it's accessible. So for me, it was just kind of like the logical next step, you know. I knew I wanted to go to college, and it just kind of made the most sense to be a piano major. But it was frustrating. It was a frustrating experience for me because I didn't want to study the things that I had to study in school to be a musician. So it's like I had to give up my love of music so that I could study it. And so there was kind of this, there was a lot of dissonance in that experience. It's like I felt like I can either study music or I can be a music major, but I can't do both, because I knew what I wanted to do. And a lot of the things that were being taught in college were things that I learned in middle school because I went to class and had those kinds of experiences that I described earlier. The culture there was just different. I was getting a lot of real world experience at a young age, accompanying dance classes and accompanying orchestra and student teaching piano classes and doing all of those things early, you know, and those are the kinds of things that the piano programs I was a part of in school were designed to prepare you to do. And it's like, well, I've done those. What I really want to do is figure out how the crap Louis Armstrong came up with this musical language in the 1920s. Like, that's what I'm really interested in. It's like, can I study traditional gospel? Can I study beat making? But so it was kind of like just trying to balance. It's like studying those things on my own and then showing up to class. The balance was way off for me, though. I was a horrible student. I was a horrible student. To this day, I don't have a degree to show for my years in college because of that. It's like most often I was choosing to study the music I wanted to study at the expense of my schooling.
Yeah. So when you talk about so what would it look like for you now then if you were a senior in high school? What would you do, like, coming out?
Yeah. Okay. So if I had the benefit of knowing what I know now, what I would most likely do is move to either coast and get heavily involved in a really saturated music scene, pre-COVID music scene, you know, like actual music scene where people can come together and seek out a mentor and do it that way. Like, who are the artists who are really modeling what I want to do? Let me go directly to them, pay them for lessons, you know, run coffee for them, whatever, to get in the room and soak up that information, because that's always going to be more valuable than a curriculum. You know, like, the curriculums are designed as like a general approach so that everybody can get in and access the information. But if you can get a one-on-one with like someone who's actually a master, someone who's lived it, they're going to be able to impart things on you just by soaking up the energy. You know, you can't get that from a book or in a classroom. What you can get in books and classrooms are extremely important, so I don't want to diminish that either, because like information. But I just think that being able to get involved on that intimate level would have served me extremely well.
Yeah. And so now that we do have COVID, what as a musician, what are you doing? What would you suggest to other musicians, people who do love this and want to continue to move forward in it? Like, what does that look like for you right now? I here in Oklahoma, I've seen JB now talking about saving the stage. You know, as an artist, what do you do? I know you're on YouTube. You're doing the videos. Is that the thing to be doing right now?
I think so. I think developing your brand and developing a way to reach your audience directly with no middlemen and building your own platform is extremely valuable. and not just building your platform through social media, but your own channels, through your website, through your email list, because what we're seeing right now is the world is really volatile, and things that we take for granted can change suddenly. So if your whole income source comes from Facebook, but Facebook changes a rule or Facebook ceases to exist, you're up a creek. But if you have an email list, if you have a direct connection with your fans and in that, you know, one-to-one kind of way, I think that's super important. I'm teaching a lot of online lessons. So that's one thing that I've been doing that's been good. You know, not having to prepare for gigs and stuff has allowed for that. And I enjoy it. And it's actually helped me start putting together a curriculum for a personalized approach teaching method that I'm working to develop. But yeah, that plus, you know, like I'm doing the Bars and Boards series and trying to leverage that into more opportunities and just trying to figure out what comes next. But yeah, right now I do think that it's super important for every artist, every musician, even if you're not trying to be the front man or the center of attention, you still need to develop your brand. You still need to make yourself marketable in a way that you can control and put yourselves in the right environments to get the kind of work you're doing, whether you're a session musician, all that can be done remotely now. If you're film score composing, you know, people are doing that at home now. If you're a teacher, you know, now everybody's teaching online. If you're an MC, you can record, you know, get your setup. The technology is here now. It's not like before. You don't need 50 grand to record a decent track, you know. You drop a couple $100, get everything you need. It's a good investment. Hit me up for your logo, because I do that too. I do some graphic design work. But yeah, just put it all together, put yourself out there. But really, I like to think of what I'm doing as kind of like a garden. You know, it's like you want to show up every day, you want to prune, you want to weed, you want to water, and then the rest is God's work. You know, you do your part, and then God actually makes the flowers bloom. So I believe that by showing up every day, writing these raps, connecting with people, responding to every message, trying to be timely. I'm doing a remix series right now where I'm inviting people to take my bars and boards, and they're doing flips and covers and stuff. So making it more collaborative, interactive, where it's not just me, it's not just my voice, but now there's a community developing. And you know all about that. I mean, you're the king. Like, I think on a subconscious level, a lot of what I'm doing it has to be directly inspired by things that I've seen you do, just in the sense of community building and the importance of stories and the importance of other voices. And so, man, hats off to you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate it. That's good to hear, man. I think, you know, the showing up every day is a big part of that, and showing up, knowing what to do when you show up every day sometimes can be challenging. But I think just getting in there and putting in the work and being willing to fail and learn from that is so key, regardless of what you're doing. I think those are some key things to be doing. Man, I can't let us jump off here without talking about you being a father, and then you gotta mention your bride. Like she's the other half of the greatness that makes Adam and Kizzy, you know. So tell me how y'all doing. How's California treating you? You transition out there and all the craziness. Like, tell me what that's like. Fatherhood, Kizzy, and California.
Yeah. Well, my little girl Juno Janelle, she's 4 months now, and she's everything, bro. Like, you have kids, so you know there's nothing like it, and there's nothing you can do, I don't think, to really prepare for how overwhelming an experience it is. And I'm an emotional creature already, but like ever since I had my girl, like I can't stop crying. Like, I don't know if you experienced that, but it's like having her has made me completely, like, I have to stay off Facebook videos. Kizzy, she gets sucked down into that Facebook page, the Dodo, where these people save animals. And I'm like, babe, you have to turn it off. We're going to be useless. But being out here in California, it's really been a God thing, because, you know, we wanted to have kids for a long time. And we tried for 6 years to no avail. And we moved to California because Kizzy's health was deteriorating in Oklahoma. She has chronic sinusitis, and she's dealt with it for years, and it's triggered by allergies. And so she was basically, if you saw Kizzy sing in the last 2 or 3 years, then what you were witnessing was Kizzy fighting through illness to sing. So we had tried everything, surgery, all sorts of allergy treatments. And finally, you know, the last thing to do was to just move to a new environment, which was really heartbreaking for us, because we love Oklahoma. We love the people, not because it's perfect, because it's not that, but we love it. I know you know. Really wanted to be there for Oklahoma and you know, fight to make it a more ideal place, you know, to help right some of the wrongs that are there. But anyway, essentially God said go, and so we moved to California, and 6 days later we found out we were pregnant. And so from the beginning, it was obvious that God was positioning. And then so it's like, you go through the freak out period where it's like, we were already starting over. We're already burning through the little bit of savings we have, and having to get bailed out by family, and you know, just all the hardships that come with that situation. And now on top of it, we're pregnant, you know. Now we have to find a pediatrician. We have to find doctor, midwife, and all this extra care. And it was really stressful. But then the baby came March 17th, and then the quarantine hit almost the same day. It was maybe like 2 days apart. And so again, it became apparent that God is positioning. So having the baby in the midst of the quarantine was difficult in its own way, but in some ways I think that it dampened the effects, because we were transitioning for a baby. So having to transition for a quarantine didn't feel as extreme, because we were already in that transition mode. So she has definitely kept us from going completely stir crazy. There's always something new when you have a baby in the house. You're really discovering how little sleep your body can function on. You know, the normal changes big time, but man, I think she's a beautiful reflection of us, and I love seeing how different pieces of Kizzy's character and personality are coming out. Different pieces of my personality were coming out. She was fussing before we started filming, so I brought her in here and just set her on my lap, and she was crying, and I started playing piano, and she calmed down, and she's just sitting here listening. I'm playing the keys, and I'm rapping to her, and she's smiling. And so she really responds to like beatboxing, and Kizzy sings these songs from The Wiz, and she loves that. It's like, even when she's in a bad mood, it's like the music, you know, rhythm and music and laughter, you know, she loves it as much as we do. So it's been great to be able to fill the house with all of that and discover it again for the first time through her eyes.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, man. So before COVID, what was your favorite thing about California? Like, what was something that you like, man, this is dope about California?
Honestly, for the space that I was in, what I really loved is how easy it was to work. I was gigging, like, I played 106 gigs in the 9 months that I moved here. Actually, it was like 6 months, because the first 3 months I was just networking. I didn't have any gigs. But when the gigs started rolling in, they were just boom, 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 boom. And of course, they pay better than Oklahoma. But yeah, what really stood out is just there's so many places to play. And that was always a problem in Oklahoma. It's like you have a spot, you might have 2 or 3 spots all simultaneously, but give it a year, somebody's going to get shut down because they didn't pay taxes. Happens over and over and over. So being a working musician in Oklahoma is just kind of a struggle just because there's not enough places to play. There's a lot of musicians, but there's not enough places to play. But one thing I will say about the Oklahoma music scene is the level of talent is unreasonably high for a scene of its size.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make sense to have some of the caliber of musicians that are there. Shout out to Willie Peterson, who specifically comes to mind. It's like, how has Oklahoma kept on to Willie Peterson? He's too good. He's too good.
But somehow.
Yeah, it's a blessing.
That's the greatness about it.
Yeah. You know, the weather here is the thing that people usually say that they love about California, but I'm gonna be honest, I miss rainstorms. The weather here it's boring. You know, when you grow up in Oklahoma and you actually like weather, don't come to California. There's no weather here, just earthquakes. There's no weather. Earthquakes, you also get some weather. Now, I don't miss hailstorms. I don't miss tornadoes. Some of the excitement around tornadoes can be fun, but it's not worth it. And to everyone and more, at some point, y'all got to stop rebuilding. I mean, God comes in every 5 years and reclaims more, and they just keep building it up. I don't understand, but yeah, I don't miss the severe weather, but I do miss weather, like those good, heavy, soil-soaking Oklahoma rainstorms. Man, I miss that bad, and I miss burgers. I think a lot of people in Oklahoma don't realize, like y'all are in like a burger mecca. There's so many places to get world-class burgers in Oklahoma. It's kind of unreasonable, and they're not as easy to find out here as you. Like, to find a really good burger, like I can't even find something on the level of like a Brahms. Like that number 2 at Brahms, maybe it's just nostalgia speaking, but I miss Oklahoma. I miss Oklahoma burger. Of course, you know that beef is mad fresh, so it is what it is. It's like our season. I feel like beef in Oklahoma is like what shrimp is in New Orleans. It's like one of the best places in the world to get it. I mean, you feel me.
Oh man, that's good, man. That's good. Man, so what should people be looking out for you? Like, I know we're doing the bars and boards. What can they get some merch? What's next, man?
As you can see, I'm modeling my merch today. I got the bars and boards on. We do have t-shirts for sale, and they're not online yet, just because, you know, haven't gotten to it yet, dealing with all the baby stuff. But the t-shirts are for sale, so if you're interested, just hit me up. Hit me in the DMs. Send me your size. I'll send you my Cash App, Venmo information. Whoop-de-whoop. Send me your address. I'll ship it to you. I'm going to throw in some extra goodies because I love y'all. And would love to see you rocking it. If you have purchased a Bars and Boards shirt, please send me a picture in it. I would love to see that. We got to get you one, Heady.
Yeah. Well, I know you're selling them, man. So the guy who prints shorts, I won't say his name because I don't love him like that, but the guy who prints shorts, man, does our shirts. And so I was in there the other day and he was printing some stuff out. I would give him a shout out, but I don't love him like that. So, but yeah. But
I'm gonna give.
So it was cool to.
Can we do shout outs?
Yeah.
Shout out to Cam. Nah.
No,
Trick
man.
Cam.
No, don't give.
I
Don't give Cam a shout out, man.
All right. They saved my trick for Sean Johnson, Trick Sean.
Hey man, Sean Johnson. You know, you were talking about ageless music, and I know we not giving Sean no shout out, but man, Sean has ageless music, man. Like typically, whenever I jump on the streets and just are cleaning the house and stuff, Sean typically is in that rotation. You know what I'm saying?
Sean
Like,
has something for every mood too. It's like, are you hungry? He has songs for that. Are you feeling ratchet? He has songs for that. Are you feeling righteous? He has songs for that. You want to fight? Got songs for that too. Like Sean, he covered all.
hey, what you think about Sean as a lyricist?
Sean got bars, and I didn't think of him that way. And Sean is one of my best friends. It just seemed like he started writing bars, and it's just like he came out the Cabbage Patch fully formed as a lyric. I feel like his bars have gotten even harder over the years. Me and Kizzy were talking about that. It's like, man, Sean kind of like came out of nowhere with like some real bars, and I think that if you're like a singer, I think there are some people who will probably never hear it for what it is, because it's like they know Sean as a singer, so now he's a singer who raps. And some people may be more recently hip to him. They might think of him as a rapper who sings. That goes back to the conversation we started off with, about how packaging and a narrative behind what you're doing can matter so much in terms of how you're perceived by people, even though everybody's listening to the same thing. If it's curated a certain way, it's going to be received a certain way. But a lot could be said about Sean, as a singer, as a lyricist, as a scout for production talent, as a designer, as a videographer. Like he does so many things, he wears so many hats, and he does it all with excellence, and still is Trick Sean though.
Yeah, man. No. One more shout out to him though. Like I think he does a very good job of promoting himself. Like,
yeah,
he does a really good job with like branding and marketing and things like that. But yeah, and I might be a little biased. So,
well, I think Sean is the best at creating conversations around the work he's doing. I don't think I've ever seen anybody at any level of the industry as good as he is. When he's promoting, JB is also excellent at it too, though. So shout out to JB. But yeah, Sean just he just gets in there, and it's like he'll sneak it up on you. It's like, oh, we're talking about Sean's album that's coming out, and I didn't even realize it. Yeah, he's the master, man. I don't know how he does. I suck at it personally. I try, but it's just we have our weaknesses. But Sean is excellent at it. JB is. I actually scheduled a meeting with JB to pick his brain about it. I was like, bro, what is your approach? Like, how are you thinking about this? And he was like, man, he starts promoting an album he hasn't made yet. He'll start promoting a thing that he hasn't even put together, which blew my mind. Maybe a lot of people do that, but I'm like, daggum, bro. So you're like 2 years, you haven't even gotten in the studio yet. You chose a title, and now you're promoting it. And so people are already on board. You haven't even like built the thing yet. That's next level.
Have you heard his new album?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is.
But yeah, crazy. It's my favorite JB record to date.
Yeah. No, it's nice.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for my vinyl. JB, if you listen to this, I'm waiting on my vinyl.
Get that, man.
I bought the vinyl early. Yeah, I don't even have a record player.
Well, see, that's like JB. He didn't even have a record. He started promoting it. He didn't even have a record. You're gonna get this vinyl without even a player.
I don't even have a record player. I do not. So, but it's all good. I wanted a vinyl. I never had one. I was like, why not get a vinyl from somebody that I know, local and all that? And it's just cool to have. I'll put it up on my wall or something like that. But
The-
The album's nice.
Have you seen the way they're pressing the vinyl and like the shapes and all that?
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. But
That's
see,
real
Jay,
crazy, man.
really good experienced designer. Um, you know, the way he puts together his products and the way he packages everything and, you know, includes the narrative in it. So it's like if you buy a JB product, by the time you like actually put it in your hand, you've gone through his entire curated process. You know what the story is, you know what the inspiration is. You're touching it, you feel like he's thought through every single aspect of the design and your experience as a consumer taking it in. And I think those are the kind of details that just put you in a whole different, you know, like brand loyalty. People love, I think it's for that reason. He gives so much of himself to it, you know?
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Well, man, give your website, give your social media handle, all that good stuff one more time.
AdamandKizzie.com, AdamandKizzie. And that's on all the channels, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon.
Ah, yeah, Patreon is, you gotta have that Patreon if you're an artist, man.
Yeah, straight up. Direct to the
If you can grow that, yeah, I was gonna say direct to the fans, and if you can grow that, man, they support you. Like I see
Yeah,
so many people who are doing that now. They just making a living off Patreon. Just
yeah,
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 if you just keep touching them, so that's cool, man. Cool. Well,
yeah,
I appreciate you spending time with me today on the Heady Coleman podcast, man. Again,
absolutely.
like I said, you're one of my favorite artists. I'm thankful that you're from Oklahoma. It's always cool to have some of your favorite artists being from your same town or state. You know what I'm saying? That's something
Yeah,
special. So shout out to you and Kizzy for the work that y'all doing, and don't give up, man.
man, I appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much for inviting me out here. It's always an honor. So I guess next time we meet, it's gonna have to be bars, bro. Bars will have to be exchanged because we didn't do
It
it this
will
time.
it will have to come back out now after we hang up and move on. We know where
Yeah,
the relationship stands.
right.
I will be ready.
So what you need to do is pre-launder the towel that you're gonna throw in, and beware when Adam Mel go in.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hitting that play button once again for Heady Coleman podcast. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, as always, go win. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, sir.